The shovel blade cut into the dry earth with a sound that made August Yancey's heart lurch sideways in his chest, because no woman should be digging her own grave at sunset, not while he still had breath in his lungs and the strength to stop her. He had been riding back from checking his cattle when he spotted her silhouette against the burnt orange sky, a lone figure in a dark dress working methodically at the ground near a twisted juniper tree. At first he thought she might be planting something or searching for water, but as he drew his horse closer, the rectangular shape of the hole became unmistakable. August pulled his mare to a halt 20 feet away, his throat tight with an emotion he could not immediately name. The woman did not look up. She was young. He could tell that much, with dark hair pinned severely back from a face streaked with dirt and tears. Her dress was once fine, but now bore the dust and wear of hard travel. The hole was already knee-deep. "Madam," August called out, his voice rougher than he intended. "What are you doing?" She stopped digging. Her shoulders stiffened, but she did not turn around. Finishing something that should have been done a long time ago. August dismounted, leaving his horse ground-tied. He approached slowly, the way he might approach a wounded animal. "That looks an awful lot like a grave you are digging there." "That is because it is." Her voice was flat, emptied of everything except exhaustion. "You planning on filling it soon?" He kept his tone careful, measured. "As soon as I'm done digging it." She finally turned to look at him, and August felt the impact of her gaze like a physical blow. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray and turbulent, and ringed with the kind of pain that came from losing everything. She could not have been more than 23 or 24, around his own age of 26, and yet she looked like she had lived 100 years. "You should go. This does not concern you." "Not today," August said firmly, and he reached down to take the shovel from her hands. She tried to hold on to it, but he was stronger, and after a moment of futile resistance, she let go. Her hands were blistered and bleeding. "Whatever you are running from, whatever has broken your heart so badly that you think this is the answer, I am telling you right now that it is not. Not today." She laughed, but it was a bitter sound without joy. "You do not know anything about me or what I have been through." "Then tell me." He tossed the shovel away, far enough that she could not easily reach it. "My name is August Yancey. I have a ranch about 3 miles from here, just outside Opal. And you are on my land, which means I have a responsibility to make sure nothing bad happens here if I can prevent it." The woman swayed on her feet, and August realized she wasn't just heartbroken but also physically depleted. He caught her elbow to steady her. "When did you last eat?" "I do not remember." She pulled away from his touch, but did not have the strength to put much distance between them. "Why do you care?" "Because I do." It was the simple truth. August had been raised by a father who believed that a man's character was measured by what he did when no one was watching, and a mother who taught him that mercy was never wasted. "Come back to my ranch. Get some food in you. Rest. And then if you still want to dig that hole, I will bring you back here myself." "You are lying." "I am not a liar." He met her eyes steadily. "I am a lot of things, but I do not lie. Not about something like this." She searched his face for a long moment, looking for the trap, the trick, the ulterior motive. August let her look. He had nothing to hide. Finally, something in her seemed to crack, and she nodded once, a barely perceptible movement. "1 meal, then you leave me alone." "1 meal," August agreed, though he had no intention of letting her come back here to finish what she had started. He would find another way to convince her that her life had value, even if he had to spend every day proving it to her. He retrieved his horse and helped her up into the saddle before swinging up behind her. She was rigid in his arms, holding herself away from him as much as possible, but after a few minutes, exhaustion won out, and she sagged back against his chest. August wrapped one arm around her waist to keep her secure and urged his mare into a gentle walk. The ride back to his ranch took nearly an hour in the fading light. The woman did not speak, and August did not push her. He used the time to study what he could see of her profile and to wonder what had brought her to such a desperate point. Her dress, though dirty, was well made. Her hands beneath the fresh blisters were not calloused from years of hard labor. She had been someone, somewhere, before whatever catastrophe had driven her out here to the wild edges of Wyoming Territory in 1884. His ranch house came into view as the last light bled from the sky. It was not much, just a sturdy cabin he had built with his own hands over the past 3 years, along with a barn, a corral, and a few outbuildings. But it was his, free and clear, and he had plans to expand it as his herd grew. August helped the woman down from the horse and led her to the house, while his dog, a gray and white cattle dog named Flint, circled them with cautious interest. Inside, he lit a lamp and guided her to a chair at his small wooden table. "Sit. I will get you some water and then make something to eat." She sat, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze distant. August pumped fresh water from the indoor pump he had installed last year, something he was particularly proud of, and brought her a cup. She drank it down in 4 long swallows, and he refilled it twice more before she finally slowed. Then he stoked up the fire in his cook stove and started pulling out supplies. He had venison stew left over from yesterday, which he set to warming, and he sliced bread from the loaf his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had brought over 2 days ago. "What is your name?" he asked as he worked. For a long moment he thought she would not answer. Then quietly, "Nora. Nora Voss. Nora." He tested the name, found he liked the way it felt in his mouth. "Where are you from, Nora?" "Does it matter?" "Maybe not, but I am curious." He ladled stew into a bowl and set it in front of her with a spoon and the bread. "Eat, please." She picked up the spoon with trembling hands and took a bite, then another. And then she was eating with the desperate hunger of someone who had not had a proper meal in days, maybe weeks. August made himself busy preparing his own food and giving her privacy to fill her stomach. When she finally slowed, he sat down across from her with his own bowl. "I am from St. Louis," Nora said, her voice stronger now. "My father was a banker. My mother died when I was 15. Last year, my father arranged for me to marry a man named Richard Caldwell. He was 42, recently widowed, with 3 children. My father said it was a good match, that Richard was respectable and wealthy, and I would want for nothing." August listened, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He knew where this story was going, or thought he did. "I did not love him, but I did not hate him either. I thought I could make it work. I thought I could be a good wife to him and a good mother to his children." Nora stared down at her empty bowl. "But Richard was not the man my father thought he was. He was cruel. He drank. And when he drank, he became violent. The children were terrified of him. I tried to protect them, and that only made him angrier." "Did he hurt you?" August asked, his voice low. "Yes." The word was simple, but it carried the weight of months of suffering. "I tried to leave. I went to my father and told him everything. But Richard was his business partner by then, and my father did not want to believe me. He said I was exaggerating, that I needed to be a better wife, that I was bringing it on myself by being difficult." August's hands curled into fists on the table. He had to consciously relax them. "So I went back. What choice did I have? But I started planning. I took small amounts of money from the household accounts, just a little at a time so Richard would not notice. I hid it. And then one night, after Richard beat me so badly I could barely stand, I knew I had to leave or he would kill me. So I took the money I had saved and I ran. I took a train as far west as I could afford, and then I bought a horse and kept going. I thought if I could just get far enough away, I would be safe. I thought I could start over." "What happened to your horse?" "She went lame 2 days ago. I had to leave her with a farmer about 30 miles east of here. He said he would care for her, and I believed him. But that left me on foot with almost no money and no idea where I was going." Nora finally looked up, meeting August's eyes. This afternoon I realized I had nothing left. No family who would help me, no money, no prospects. I could not go back, and I could not go forward, so I decided to stop. You decided wrong, August said gently. I know it does not feel like it right now, but you have options. You can stay here, work for me. I need help around the ranch, and I can pay you a fair wage. It would not be much at first, but it would be honest work and a roof over your head. And I give you my word on my parents' graves that I would never raise a hand to you in anger. Nora shook her head. You do not even know me. Why would you do this? Because it is the right thing to do. He said it simply, as if it were the most obvious answer in the world. And because I think you deserve a chance to find out who you are when you are not living in fear. Tears welled in her eyes, the first genuine emotion he had seen from her beyond exhaustion and despair. I do not know how to ranch. I can teach you. August smiled, hoping to ease the tension in her shoulders. And there is plenty of other work. Cooking, mending, garden work once spring comes. I am not particular about what needs doing as long as it gets done eventually. I do not understand you, Nora whispered. Men are not kind without wanting something in return. Then you have been around the wrong men. August stood and began clearing the dishes. You can sleep in my room tonight. I will take the spare room. Tomorrow, after you have rested, we can talk more about what comes next. But for now, just let yourself be safe. That is all I am asking. Nora looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her again, making her eyelids heavy. Where is your wife? I do not have one. Never been married. He saw her stiffen and added quickly, Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor, lives about a mile down the road. You can go to her tomorrow if you want, verify that I am who I say I am and that I have a decent reputation. She will tell you I am stubborn and too independent for my own good, but she will also tell you I'm honest. Some of the tension left Nora's shoulders. All right, one night, but tomorrow I make my own decisions. Fair enough. August led her to his bedroom, a small space with a sturdy bed and a chest of drawers. There is water in the pitcher if you want to wash up, and there are clean blankets in the chest. Take whatever you need. Thank you, Nora said, and for the first time, there was something other than pain in her voice. Something that might, with time and care, grow into hope. August left her there and went to the spare room, which was really just a storage area with a cot he sometimes used when he was too tired to make it to his actual bed. He lay down fully clothed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of Nora moving around in the other room. He had not been lying when he said he wanted to help her, but he also had not been entirely honest about his motivations. The truth was, from the moment he had seen her face, something in his chest had shifted and settled in a way he did not fully understand. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. There was a strength in her, buried under the pain, that called to something in him. He wanted to see her smile. He wanted to know what her laugh sounded like. He wanted to give her reasons to believe the world could be kind. But those were dangerous thoughts for a man to have about a woman who had just escaped a nightmare. So August pushed them away and focused instead on practical matters. Tomorrow he would ride to the Patterson ranch and let them know he had a guest. He would make sure Nora had everything she needed to feel comfortable and safe. And then he would give her space and time to heal, no matter how long it took. He must have dozed off eventually because the next thing he knew, pale morning light was filtering through the window. August got up, splashed water on his face from the basin, and went out to start the morning chores. Flint greeted him at the door, tail wagging, and together they headed to the barn to feed the horses and check on the cattle. It was a clear, cold November morning, the kind that made his breath steam and his fingers ache even through his gloves. But August loved this time of day, when the world was quiet and the work was simple and honest. He was mending a broken fence rail when he heard the cabin door open. Turning, he saw Nora standing on the porch, wrapped in one of his spare coats. Her hair was still pinned back, but she had washed her face, and in the morning light he could see the full extent of the bruises on her cheek and jaw. Anger flared hot and bright in his chest, but he tamped it down. The man who had done that to her was far away, and getting angry would not help Nora now. "Morning," he called out. "There is coffee on the stove if you want some." Nora nodded and disappeared back inside. August finished with the fence and then returned to the cabin. He found her sitting at the table with a cup of coffee cradled in her hands, staring out the window at the mountains in the distance. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "A little. More than I have in weeks." She took a sip of coffee. "I have been thinking about what you said last night, about staying and working." August poured himself a cup and sat down. And I do not know if I can trust you, but I do not have anywhere else to go, so I suppose I do not have much choice." She met his eyes. "If I stay, I need to know the rules, what you expect from me. What happens if I do not meet those expectations?" "The rules are simple. You work hard, I pay you fairly. You respect me and my property, I respect you and your privacy. If something is not working, we talk about it like adults. And if you decide you want to leave, you leave. I will not stop you." August paused. "As for expectations, I expect honesty. If you are struggling with something, tell me. If you need help, ask for it. If you are unhappy, say so. I cannot fix problems I do not know about." "And if I fail?" "Then we figure out what went wrong and try again, Nora. I am not looking for perfection. I am looking for effort, that is all." He hesitated, then added, "I know you have been through hell. I know you have every reason to think I have some hidden agenda, but I swear to you I do not. I just want to help." Nora studied him for a long moment, her gray eyes searching his face. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. "All right, I will stay, for now." "Good." August felt a rush of relief so strong it surprised him. "Let me finish the morning chores, and then I will ride over to the Pattersons and let them know you are here. You can come with me if you want, or you can stay here and rest. Whatever you are comfortable with." "I will come," Nora said. "I would like to meet your neighbors." The ride to the Patterson ranch was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Nora sat in front of August again, but this time she was more relaxed, leaning into him just slightly as they rode. The Pattersons' place was larger than August's, with a 2-story house and several outbuildings. Jack Patterson was in his 50s, a weathered man with kind eyes and a booming laugh. His wife, Margaret, was a plump, cheerful woman who reminded August of his own mother. They had 3 sons, all grown and working their own ranches, and they treated August like a fourth. Margaret took one look at Nora's bruised face and immediately swept her into the house, clucking like a mother hen. Jack watched them go and then turned to August. "What happened to her?" "Her husband," August said flatly. "She ran." Jack's expression darkened. "She's safe now?" "She is with me. I offered her work." August met the older man's eyes. "I need you to tell her I am trustworthy. She has no reason to believe me, but she might believe you." "You are a good man, August Yancey," Jack said, clapping him on the shoulder. "I will make sure she knows it." Inside, Margaret had already installed Nora at the kitchen table with tea and fresh bread. She was asking gentle questions about Nora's journey, not prying, but making it clear she was available to listen if Nora wanted to talk. August and Jack joined them, and for the next hour they all sat together sharing stories and laughter. Slowly, August saw Nora begin to relax. The tight lines around her mouth eased. Her shoulders came down from around her ears, and once, just once, she almost smiled. When they finally left, Margaret pressed a basket of food into Nora's hands. "You come back any time, dear, and if you need anything at all, you send August to fetch me." "Thank you," Nora said, and this time there was genuine warmth in her voice. On the ride back, she was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Thoughtful rather than despairing. When they reached the ranch, she surprised August by asking, "What do you need me to do?" He blinked. "You do not have to start working today. You should rest." "I have been resting. I want to be useful." There was a stubborn set to her jaw that August recognized because he saw it in the mirror every morning. "All right," he said, hiding a smile. "Can you cook?" "Yes." "Then you are in charge of meals. I can handle breakfast and supper if you want to start slow, but if you can manage all three, that would free up a lot of my time." He paused. "There is also mending that needs doing. I am terrible at it. Everything I own has crooked seams and missing buttons." Nora actually did smile at that, a small fleeting thing, but it transformed her face. "I can do that." They fell into a routine over the next few days. August handled the ranch work, while Nora took over the domestic tasks. She was a good cook, much better than August, and she attacked the mending with a determination that bordered on ferocious. In the evenings, they sat together at the table, talking about small things. August told her about his plans for the ranch, his hopes of building a larger herd, and maybe one day having enough cattle to sell at market. Nora talked about her childhood in St. Louis, the books she had loved, the places she had dreamed of seeing. She did not talk about her marriage, and August did not ask. A week passed, then two. The bruises on Nora's face faded from purple to yellow to gone. The blisters on her hands healed. She started taking walks around the property, exploring the boundaries of her new home. August watched her from a distance, careful not to crowd her, but always aware of where she was and that she was safe. The first time she laughed, it startled them both. August had been telling her about the time Flint had chased a skunk and ended up getting sprayed, and the sound just bubbled out of her, bright and unrestrained. She clapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide, but August grinned at her. "Do not stop on my account," he said. "It is a good sound." Nora lowered her hand slowly. "I had forgotten what it felt like." "Then we will have to make sure you remember," August said, and he meant it. Winter settled over Wyoming in earnest as December arrived. Snow came in thick, heavy blankets, transforming the landscape into something stark and beautiful. August spent long hours tending to the cattle, making sure they had enough feed and that none were lost to the cold. Nora kept the cabin warm and the meals hot, and August found himself looking forward to the end of each day when he could come inside and find her there, waiting. He was falling in love with her. He knew it. Even if he did not say it, he saw it in the way his heart lifted when she smiled at him, in the way he found excuses to sit closer to her at the table, in the way he lay awake at night thinking about the sound of her voice. But he also knew it was too soon. She was still healing, still learning to trust again. So he kept his feelings to himself and focused on being her friend. Christmas came, and August surprised Nora with a small gift. A book of poetry he had ordered from a catalog months ago but never gotten around to reading. Her eyes filled with tears when she opened it, and she hugged him impulsively, her arms tight around his neck. August held her carefully, afraid she would pull away, but she did not. She just stood there, her face pressed against his shoulder, and for a moment he let himself imagine what it would be like if this were his life, if she were truly his. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one has ever given me something just because they thought I would like it." "Then they were fools," August said, and he meant that too. January brought a blizzard that trapped them inside for 3 days. They played cards, read aloud to each other, and talked about everything and nothing. On the second night, as the wind howled outside and the fire crackled in the stove, Nora finally told him the whole story of her marriage. She spoke haltingly at first, then faster, the words pouring out of her like poison she needed to purge. August listened without interrupting. His hands clenched so tightly his knuckles went white. When she finished, she was crying, and he pulled her into his arms and let her sob against his chest until there were no tears left. "You are safe now," he murmured into her hair. "I promise you, Nora, you are safe." "I know," she said, and he realized with a start that she meant it. She trusted him. The thought made his heart swell. The blizzard passed, and life returned to normal, but something had shifted between them. Nora smiled more. She stood closer when they worked side by side. She touched his arm when she spoke to him. light, fleeting touches that sent electricity racing through his veins. August did not know if she felt the same pull he did, but he hoped. God, how he hoped. February arrived with slightly warmer temperatures and the first hints that spring might eventually come. August was in the barn one afternoon repairing a saddle when Nora came in. She looked nervous, her hands twisting together in front of her. "August, can I talk to you?" "Of course." He set down the saddle and gave her his full attention. "What is on your mind?" "I have been thinking about something, and I need to know the truth." She took a deep breath. "Why did you really stop me that day? And why have you been so kind to me?" August considered his answer carefully. He could lie, or he could deflect, but Nora had asked for the truth and he had promised her honesty. "I stopped you because I could not ride past and do nothing. That is the man my parents raised me to be. As for why I have been kind at first, it was just because you needed help and I could give it. But now?" He paused, his heart pounding. "Now it is because I care about you, more than I should, probably, given how short a time we have known each other. But I do. I care about you, Nora." She stared at him, her gray eyes wide. "You care about me?" "Yes." There was no point in denying it now. "I do not expect you to feel the same way. I know you have been through hell, and the last thing you need is a man complicating your life. But you asked for the truth? And that is it?" Nora crossed the distance between them in 3 quick steps and kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss, not tentative or uncertain. It was fierce and desperate and full of all the things she could not put into words. August froze for half a heartbeat, shocked, and then he kissed her back, his arms coming up to wrap around her waist and pull her close. She tasted like the peppermint tea she had been drinking, sweet and sharp, and August thought he could happily drown in this moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nora pressed her forehead to his. "I care about you too. I have for weeks, but I was afraid to say anything, afraid you did not feel the same way, afraid I was broken and you deserved someone whole." "You are not broken," August said fiercely. "You are strong and brave and beautiful, and I am the luckiest man alive that you are here with me." She laughed, and it was the same bright, unrestrained sound he had fallen in love with. "We are quite a pair, are we not? The rancher and the runaway." "The rancher and the woman he loves," August corrected, and then froze, realizing what he had just said. But Nora just smiled, her whole face lighting up. "The woman who loves him back." They stood there in the barn holding each other, and August felt like his heart might burst from the sheer joy of it. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring every second. When they finally pulled apart, Nora was blushing, and August could not stop grinning. "So what happens now?" Nora asked. "Now we figure it out together," August said. "No rush, no pressure. We just take it one day at a time and see where it leads." "I like the sound of that," Nora said, and she laced her fingers through his. They spent the rest of the day working side by side, stealing kisses when they thought the other was not looking, and talking about the future. August told her about his dream of expanding the ranch, maybe building a bigger house with a real kitchen and multiple bedrooms. Nora talked about planting a garden in the spring, growing vegetables and flowers to make the place feel more like a home. They made plans the way people in love do, wild and optimistic and full of hope. That night after supper, they sat together on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in blankets and watching the stars. Nora leaned her head on August's shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "I never thought I would feel safe again," she said quietly, "but I do. With you, I do. You will always be safe with me," August promised, always. March came in like a lion, bringing rain and wind that turned the roads to mud and made the cattle restless. August worked from dawn until well past dark, trying to keep everything together, and Nora worked just as hard, keeping the house running and making sure August ate and rested. They were a team, and it showed in everything they did. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Nora broached a subject that had been on her mind. "August, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Always," he said, setting aside the piece of leather he had been working on. What if Richard comes looking for me? What if he finds me? August's jaw tightened. Has he been trying to find you? I do not know. I have not heard anything, but that does not mean he has not been looking. Nora twisted her hands in her lap. He is a proud man. He would see my leaving as a personal insult, something that needs to be corrected. If he comes here, he will have to go through me, August said flatly, and I promise you, Nora, I will not let him take you. Not without a fight. I do not want you to get hurt because of me. And I do not want you to spend your life looking over your shoulder. August reached out and took her hands in his. Listen to me. We will be careful. We will be smart. But we will not live in fear. If Richard shows up, we will deal with it together. All right? Nora nodded, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. All right. Besides, August added with a grin, he would have to find you first. And Opal is a long way from St. Louis. The odds of him tracking you here are pretty slim. I hope you're right, Nora said, but she still looked worried. August pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Whatever happens, we face it together. I promise. Spring arrived in earnest in April, transforming the brown landscape into a riot of green. Nora planted her garden, and August expanded the cattle herd, buying a few additional head from a neighboring rancher. They worked together in the evenings, August helping Nora with the heavier garden tasks while she helped him with the bookkeeping he hated. Their relationship deepened, moving from new love to something more solid and enduring. In May, August took Nora into town for the first time. Opal was a small settlement, just a general store, a saloon, a church, and a handful of houses, but it was the center of the community. August introduced Nora to everyone they met, and if anyone was curious about where she had come from or why she was living with him, they were polite enough not to ask. Margaret Patterson, who had come into town the same day, took Nora under her wing, introducing her to the other women and making sure she felt welcome. As they rode back to the ranch that evening, Nora was quiet. August glanced at her, concerned. You all right? Yes, she said, and then, it is just strange. I spent so long feeling like I had to hide, like I was doing something wrong just by existing, but no one in town looked at me like I was shameful or broken. They just looked at me like I was a person. Because you are, August said, just a person like everyone else. You deserve to be treated that way. Nora reached over and squeezed his hand. Thank you for everything. You do not have to thank me, Nora. I love you. This is what love looks like. I love you too, she said, and August felt like the richest man in the world. In June, August asked Nora to marry him. It was not a grand gesture or an elaborate proposal. They were sitting on the porch after supper, watching the sun set over the mountains, and the words just came out. Nora, will you marry me? She turned to look at him, her eyes shining. Yes, I will. August pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold band, nothing fancy, but it had belonged to his mother, and it was the most precious thing he owned. He slipped it onto Nora's finger, and it fit perfectly. They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and August thought he had never been happier. They were married in July in a small ceremony at the church in Opal. Jack and Margaret Patterson stood as witnesses, along with a handful of other neighbors who had become friends. Nora wore a simple blue dress that Margaret had helped her sew, and August wore his best suit, the one he had bought for his father's funeral and had not worn since. The ceremony was short and sweet, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, August kissed Nora like he never wanted to let her go. The summer passed in a blur of work and happiness. August and Nora settled into married life easily, their partnership deepening as they navigated the challenges of running the ranch together. There were hard days when the work seemed endless and the money too tight, but they faced them together, and that made all the difference. In August, a stranger rode into Opal asking questions about a woman from St. Louis. The descriptions he gave matched Nora, and the storekeeper, who was loyal to August and liked Nora, sent word to the ranch immediately. August read the note and felt ice settle in his stomach. "He's here," he said, handing the note to Nora. She read it, her face going pale. "Richard, we do not know that for sure," August said, though he suspected it was. "But we need to be prepared. I want you to stay close to the house. If you see anyone you do not recognize, you get inside and bar the door, understand?" "August, I do not want you to confront him. He is dangerous." "So am I when someone threatens my family." August checked his rifle, making sure it was loaded. "I am not going to let him hurt you, Nora. I promised you that. And I meant it." The stranger showed up at the ranch 2 days later. August saw him coming from a distance, a well-dressed man on a fine horse, and he knew immediately that this was Richard Caldwell. He met him in the yard, rifle held casually but ready. "Can I help you?" August called out. Richard pulled his horse to a stop, his eyes narrowing as he took in August's stance. "I am looking for my wife, Nora Caldwell. I have reason to believe she is here." "You are mistaken," August said evenly. "There is no Nora Caldwell here." "Do not lie to me. I was told in town that a woman matching her description lives here with you." Richard's voice was sharp, edged with anger. "Her name is Nora Yancey now," August said, letting the emphasis fall on the last name. "She is my wife, and she does not want to see you." Richard's face flushed red. "She is still married to me. Any ceremony you had is invalid." "Actually, it is not." August pulled a folded paper from his pocket and tossed it to Richard. "Those are divorce papers, filed in Cheyenne and signed by a judge. Your marriage to Nora is dissolved. She is free, and she is mine." It was a bluff. August had not filed any divorce papers, but he was gambling that Richard would not know that, and that the official-looking document he had cobbled together with the help of the Pattersons would be convincing enough. Richard stared at the paper, his jaw working. "This is not over. I will not be made a fool of by some backwater rancher and a disobedient wife." "Yes, it is over." August raised the rifle just slightly, enough to make his point clear. "You are not welcome here, Mr. Caldwell. If I see you on my property again, I will assume you mean harm to my family, and I will act accordingly. Now get off my land." For a long moment, Richard did not move. August could see the calculation in his eyes, weighing his options. Finally, Richard wheeled his horse around and rode off, kicking up dust in his wake. August did not lower the rifle until he was out of sight. Nora came running out of the house, her face pale and her hands shaking. "Is he gone?" "He is gone." August set the rifle down and pulled her into his arms. "He is gone, and he is not coming back." "What if he does not believe the papers? What if he comes back with the law?" "Then we will deal with it, but I do not think he will. Men like him do not like to admit they have been beaten, and if he pushes this, it will become public knowledge that his wife ran away from him. That is not the kind of reputation a man like him wants." Nora buried her face in his chest, her body trembling. "I was so scared." "I know, but you are safe. I promise, Nora, you are safe." They stood there in the yard holding each other until Nora finally stopped shaking. That night, August sent word to the storekeeper and to Jack Patterson, asking them to keep an eye out for Richard and to let him know if he was still in the area. But days passed, then a week, and there was no sign of him. August began to relax, to believe that Richard had truly given up and gone home. In September, Nora told August she was pregnant. He was stunned, then overjoyed, sweeping her up and spinning her around until she laughingly demanded he put her down. They spent the evening making plans, talking about names and nurseries and what kind of parents they wanted to be. August found himself thinking about his own father, about the lessons he had learned and the values he wanted to pass on. He wanted to be the kind of father who was present and involved, who taught his children to work hard and treat others with respect. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Nora bloomed with it. Her cheeks filled out, and her eyes lost the haunted look that had lingered for so long. She sang while she worked, and August often caught her with her hand resting on her belly, a soft smile on her face. He loved watching her like this, loved knowing that they were building a family together. Winter came again, and with it, long evenings spent by the fire. August read aloud to Nora from the book of poetry he had given her, and she knitted tiny clothes for the baby. They talked about the future, about expanding the ranch, and maybe one day building a school in Opal so their children would not have to travel far for an education. In March, Nora went into labor. It was a long, difficult process, and there were moments when August was terrified he would lose her. But Margaret Patterson was there, experienced and calm, guiding them both through it. And when their son was finally born, squalling and red-faced and perfect, August felt tears streaming down his face. "He is beautiful," Nora whispered, exhausted but glowing as she held their son. "Just like his mother," August said, kissing her forehead. "What should we name him?" They had talked about names for months, but had not settled on anything. Nora looked down at the baby, considering. "I want to name him after your father. What was his name?" "James," August said, his voice thick with emotion. "James Yancey," Nora said, testing it out. "I like it." "So do I." James was a healthy baby, loud and demanding and utterly adored by both his parents. August took to fatherhood with the same determination he brought to everything else, changing diapers and walking the floor with James when he would not sleep. Nora watched him with soft eyes, falling even more in love with the man she had married. The ranch continued to grow. August hired a hand to help with the cattle, a young man named Tom who was hardworking and reliable. This freed up more of August's time to spend with Nora and James, and he was grateful for it. He did not want to miss a moment of his son's childhood. When James was 6 months old, Nora received a letter. It had been forwarded from the general store in Opal, and the return address was St. Louis. Nora stared at it for a long time before finally opening it. Inside was a short note from her father's lawyer, informing her that her father had passed away and that she had been left a modest inheritance. There was no personal message, no apology, no acknowledgement of the pain her father had caused her. Just a cold, businesslike notification. Nora read it twice and then handed it to August. He read it and then pulled her into his arms. "I am sorry." "I am not," Nora said, surprising him. "I mourned my father a long time ago when he chose Richard over me. This does not change anything." "What do you want to do about the inheritance?" "Keep it. Use it to improve the ranch. That would have made him angrier than anything else I could do." There was a bitter edge to her voice, but also a kind of satisfaction. August kissed her temple. "Whatever you want." The money allowed them to make several improvements to the ranch. They built a larger barn, installed a windmill for pumping water, and bought more cattle. The ranch began to turn a real profit, enough that August could start thinking about the bigger house he had always wanted to build for Nora. The following spring, they broke ground on the new house. It was a 2-story structure with 4 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a parlor. August did most of the work himself, with help from Tom and Jack Patterson. Nora supervised, offering suggestions and making sure everything was exactly the way she wanted it. By fall, the house was finished, and they moved in with great ceremony, James toddling around exploring every corner of his new home. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch thrived. James grew into a curious, energetic toddler who kept his parents on their toes, and August and Nora's love deepened, maturing into something solid and enduring. They had arguments, as all couples do, but they always worked through them, committed to the partnership they had built. When James was 2, Nora became pregnant again. This time, August was less nervous, more confident in his ability to support his wife through the process. Their second child, a daughter they named Grace, was born on a beautiful May morning. She was quieter than James had been, more content to watch the world with wide, curious eyes. August adored both his children, but he had a special softness for Grace. He spent hours rocking her, singing old songs his mother had taught him, telling her stories about the ranch and the mountains and the life they were building together. Nora watched him with their daughter and fell in love with him all over again. The years passed, marked by the changing seasons and the milestones of their growing family. James started school in the new schoolhouse that had been built in Opal, largely funded by August and several other ranchers. Grace followed a few years later, and August and Nora found themselves navigating the challenges of parenthood with the same teamwork they brought to everything else. When James was 8 and Grace was 6, Nora became pregnant a third time. This pregnancy was harder than the previous two, and there were moments when both August and Nora worried about complications, but their third child, another son they named Thomas, arrived safely, and the Yancey family was complete. August expanded the ranch one final time, buying additional land from a neighbor who was retiring. The Yancey Ranch became one of the most successful operations in the area, known for its quality cattle and fair dealings. August hired additional hands, built more outbuildings, and invested in better equipment. But no matter how busy he was, he always made time for his family. Dinner was sacred, a time when they all sat together and talked about their days. Sundays were for church and family outings, picnics by the creek, or rides through the mountains. Nora thrived as a wife and mother, but she also carved out space for herself. She started a small library in Opal, donating books and encouraging other women to read and learn. She wrote letters to her old friends from St. Louis, reconnecting with the few who had stood by her after she left Richard. And she never stopped being August's partner, his sounding board, and his closest confidant. One evening when James was 15, Grace was 13, and Thomas was 7, the family sat together on the porch of their house watching the sun set. August had his arm around Nora, and she leaned into him with the ease of long familiarity. The children were talking and laughing, and the sound filled August's heart with a contentment he had never imagined possible. "Do you ever think about that day?" Nora asked quietly, her voice pitched low enough that the children could not hear. "What day?" August asked, though he knew. "The day you found me digging my grave?" August was silent for a moment, remembering the way she had looked, broken and defeated, the shovel cutting into the dry earth. "Yes," he said finally. "I think about it sometimes." "I am glad you stopped me," Nora said. "I am glad you said not today." "So am I." August kissed the top of her head. "So am I." They sat there as the stars came out, surrounded by their children and the life they had built together. August thought about all the things that had had to happen for them to reach this moment, the pain and the fear, the hard work and the sacrifices, the love and the commitment. It had all been worth it. Every single bit of it. Nora looked up at him, her gray eyes shining in the starlight. "I love you, August Yancey." "I love you too, Nora Yancey." He said it the way he always did, with absolute certainty, because it was the truest thing he knew. The years continued to roll forward. James grew into a strong, responsible young man who took over more and more of the ranch work, learning everything August could teach him about cattle and land management. He was steady and reliable with his father's work ethic and his mother's compassion. Grace was bright and quick, with a love of books that rivaled her mother's. She talked about becoming a teacher one day, and August had no doubt she would excel at it. Thomas was the wild one, always getting into mischief and testing boundaries. But he had a good heart and a fierce loyalty to his family. When James turned 18, he started courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a sweet girl named Elizabeth who fit seamlessly into the Yancey family. August watched his son with the same careful attention he had given to his cattle, making sure James treated Elizabeth with respect and kindness. He need not have worried. James was his father's son in all the ways that mattered. Grace, at 16, was becoming a young woman, beautiful and intelligent and determined. She had suitors, but she was in no hurry to settle down, much to Nora's amusement. "She is like you," August told his wife one evening. "She knows what she wants, and she will not settle for less." "I learned from the best," Nora said, kissing his cheek. Thomas, at 11, was still more interested in adventure than in girls or responsibilities. He spent his days exploring the ranch, climbing trees, and pestering his older siblings. August knew the time would come when Thomas would settle down, but for now he let the boy be a boy, enjoying the freedom of childhood while it lasted. August himself was in his 40s now, his hair starting to gray at the temples and his body bearing the wear of years of hard work. But he was still strong, still capable, and still deeply in love with his wife. Nora had a few gray hairs of her own now, and lines around her eyes from years of smiling. But to August, she was as beautiful as the day he had first seen her. One autumn afternoon, August and Nora took a ride out to the place where he had found her all those years ago. The twisted juniper tree was still there, a little more gnarled, a little more weathered, but standing strong. August dismounted and helped Nora down, and they stood together looking at the spot where she had been digging. "It is strange," Nora said, "to think that I almost ended everything here." "But you did not," August said. "You lived, and look at what you built." Nora turned to look at him, her eyes bright. "We built. Together." "Together," August agreed, and he kissed her, slow and sweet, the way he had kissed her 1,000 times before and would kiss her 1,000 times more. They rode back to the ranch as the sun began to set, their horses side by side, their hands occasionally brushing as they moved. When they arrived, the house was lit up, smoke curling from the chimney, and they could hear the sounds of their children inside talking and laughing and living the lives that August and Nora had fought so hard to give them. August helped Nora down from her horse and held her close for a moment, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. This was his life. This was his legacy. Not the ranch or the cattle or the land, but this family, this love, this home they had created together. "Come on," Nora said, pulling away with a smile. "Dinner is probably ready, and you know how the children get when we are late." August laughed and followed her inside, into the warmth and the light and the love that filled every corner of the house they had built. He hung up his hat and washed his hands and sat down at the table with his family. And as he looked around at their faces, he felt a gratitude so profound it brought tears to his eyes. This was what he had saved when he had stopped Nora from digging that grave. This was what she had given him when she had chosen to live. This was the miracle of second chances, of love that healed, of hope that refused to die. As they ate and talked and laughed together, August reached under the table and took Nora's hand, lacing his fingers through hers. She squeezed back, a silent communication that needed no words. They had come so far from that day in the dusty Wyoming wilderness. They had built something beautiful and enduring, and it would last long after they were gone, carried forward by their children and their children's children. The meal ended, and the children scattered to their evening chores and activities. August and Nora cleaned up together, moving around each other with the practiced ease of long partnership. When the kitchen was spotless, they went out to the porch and sat in their rocking chairs, watching the stars come out. "Do you have any regrets?" Nora asked, her voice quiet in the darkness. August thought about it, really thought about it. "No," he said finally, "not a single one. Everything I have ever done, every choice I have made, led me to you, to this. How could I regret any of it? Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. They made us who we are." He reached over and took her hand again. "What about you? Any regrets?" Nora was quiet for a long moment, only that I wasted so much time being afraid. But even that taught me something. It taught me to appreciate what I have, to never take this life for granted. "I do not think either of us takes it for granted," August said. "We know how rare this is, how precious." They rocked in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from years of knowing someone, of loving them through good times and bad. The night was cool but not cold, the air filled with the scent of hay and earth and home. Inside, they could hear the muffled sounds of their children getting ready for bed. Thomas was arguing with Grace about something, his voice high and indignant. James was playing his harmonica, a skill he had picked up over the summer. The sounds blended together into a symphony of domestic life, and August felt his heart swell with love for all of them. I would do it all again, Nora said suddenly. Every hard thing, every painful moment, I would do it all again if it meant ending up here with you. August turned to look at her, seeing the woman he loved illuminated by starlight. So would I, he said. So would I. They sat there until late into the night, talking about their dreams for the future, about the ranch and the children and the life they would continue to build together. They talked about growing old, about becoming grandparents, about watching their children make lives of their own. They talked about everything and nothing, the way they always did, bound together by love and history and choice. When they finally went inside, the house was quiet, the children all asleep. August and Nora checked on each one, pulling up blankets and brushing hair back from foreheads, whispering quiet blessings over each child. Then they went to their own room and prepared for bed, moving through the familiar routine with the comfort of ritual. As they lay in the darkness, Nora curled against August's side, her head on his shoulder and her hand over his heart. "Thank you," she whispered. For what? For stopping me that day, for giving me a reason to live, for loving me when I did not think I could be loved. August wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "You do not have to thank me for that, Nora. Loving you is the easiest thing I have ever done." She kissed his chest, right over his heart, and then settled back against him with a contented sigh. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into the rhythm of sleep. August lay awake a while longer, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the strange and wonderful path his life had taken. If someone had told him that day he had ridden out to check his cattle that he would find his future wife digging her own grave, he would have thought them mad. But that was exactly what had happened. And from that moment of desperation and despair had grown this life, this family, this love that sustained him. He thought about the words he had said to her that day, "Not today." 2 simple words that had changed everything. He had not known in that moment what he was really saying. He had not known that he was promising her a future, offering her hope, giving her a reason to believe that tomorrow could be better than today. But that was what he had done, and he would never regret it. August finally drifted off to sleep, his arms still wrapped around his wife, his heart full of gratitude for the life they had built together. And in his dreams he saw all the tomorrows stretching out before them, golden and bright and full of promise. The seasons continued their endless cycle. Spring brought new calves and the hard work of branding and vaccinating. Summer brought heat and long days of moving cattle to better grazing. Fall brought the harvest and preparations for winter. And winter brought rest, a time to repair equipment and spend long evenings with family. Through it all, August and Nora remained the center of their family, the foundation upon which everything else was built. They celebrated birthdays and holidays, mourned losses, and celebrated victories. They watched their children grow and change, becoming their own people with their own dreams and ambitions. James married Elizabeth when he was 21, and they built a small house on the edge of the Yancey property. A year later, they welcomed August and Nora's first grandchild, a boy they named August James, after both his grandfather and his father. August held his grandson for the first time and felt the circle of life complete itself in a way that took his breath away. Grace did become a teacher, taking a position at the school in Opal and inspiring a new generation of children to love learning the way she did. She married a few years later, a kind man named Daniel who worked at the bank, and they had 2 daughters who were the light of Nora's life. Thomas, true to his wild nature, left home when he was 18 to seek his fortune. He wrote letters faithfully telling them about his adventures working on cattle drives and exploring the frontier. August worried about him, but he also understood. Thomas needed to find his own way, just as August had done all those years ago. As the years passed, August and Nora gradually stepped back from the day-to-day running of the ranch, passing more and more responsibility to James. They spent their time with their grandchildren, tending Nora's garden, and simply enjoying each other's company. They had earned their rest, and they took it gratefully. On their 20th wedding anniversary, August took Nora back to the spot where he had found her. This time, instead of a grave, they planted a tree, a strong young oak that would grow tall and provide shade for generations to come. They stood together, their hands clasped, and looked out at the mountains they both loved. "Do you remember what you said to me that day?" Nora asked. "Not today," August replied. "And I would say it again. Every day for the rest of our lives, I would say it again. Not today, not ever." Nora smiled up at him, her gray eyes still as beautiful as they had been when he first saw them. "I love you, August Yancey. With everything I am, I love you." "And I love you, Nora Yancey, forever and always." They kissed beneath the open sky, surrounded by the land they had worked and the life they had built. And as the sun set over the mountains, painting the world in shades of gold and crimson, August thought about how far they had come and how much they had overcome. From despair to hope, from loneliness to love, from endings to new beginnings, their story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though it had started with both. It was a story of daily choices, of showing up for each other day after day, of building something lasting through hard work and commitment and love. It was a story of healing, of second chances, of the miracle that happens when two broken people find each other and decide to be whole together. As they walked back to their horses hand in hand, August looked back at the young oak tree they had planted. One day their great-grandchildren would play in its shade. One day someone would ask about the tree and they would be told the story of August and Nora, of how he had found her digging what looked like her grave and had stopped her with two simple words: "Not today." And that story would be passed down through generations, a testament to the power of love and hope and the choice to keep living even when everything seems lost. Because that was what August and Nora had done. They had chosen life, chosen love, chosen each other. And from that choice had grown a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. They rode home as the stars began to appear, the evening cool and peaceful. When they reached the ranch, lights were glowing in the windows, and they could see their family gathered inside, waiting for them. James and Elizabeth with their children, Grace and Daniel with theirs, and even Thomas, who had surprised them by coming home for their anniversary. August and Nora dismounted and walked hand in hand to the house, to the family they had created, to the love that had sustained them through everything. And as they stepped through the door, into the warmth and the laughter and the joy, August sent up a silent prayer of thanksgiving for the day he had ridden out to check his cattle and found a woman digging her own grave. Because that day, with two simple words, he had saved not just her life, but his own. He had found his purpose, his partner, his home. And in the end, that was what mattered. Not the size of the ranch or the number of cattle or the money in the bank. What mattered was this: the woman he loved, the family they had built, and the life they had chosen together. "Not today," he had said. And because of those words, they had been given all the tomorrows that followed, every sunrise, every sunset, every moment of joy and sorrow, and everything in between. They had been given a life, and they had lived it well together with love and courage and hope. And when their time finally came to rest many years later, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, August and Nora would face it the same way they had faced everything else, hand in hand, heart to heart, knowing that what they had built together would live on in the people they loved and the legacy they left behind. But that was still far in the future. For now they had tonight and tomorrow and all the days that would follow. They had each other and they had love, and that was more than enough. It was everything.